Hello everyone. Maayong buntag, magandang umaga, maayong gabi, magandang gabi. Today we will be discussing the case of Gamboa versus Teves. This case involves shares in PLDT, and it is all about the definition of capital under Section 11, Article 12 of the 1987 Constitution. Now, what are the facts of the case? Facts of the case are as follows. PLDT, or the Philippine Long Distance Telephone Company, is 26% owned by PTIC. Now, PTIC for its part is 54% owned by First Pacific. First Pacific is a foreign corporation. It is Bermuda-based and Hong Kong registered. Now, 46% of PTIC, or the shares not owned by First Pacific, were sequestered by PCGG. Now, to make money out of those shares, the PCGG decided to dispose of those shares through a bidding process. And in that bidding, a foreign corporation won. However, First Pacific wanted to exercise its right of first refusal. And in exercising that right of first refusal, eventually, a subsidiary of First Pacific was able to purchase that 46% of PTIC. As a result of all of that, First Pacific's common shares in PLDT rose from 30% to 37%. And foreign shareholdings of common shares in PLDT went up to about 80%. And this is where petitioner Gamboa comes in. Gamboa is a stockholder of PLDT, and he questioned the transaction because he claims that it violates Section 11, Article 12 of the 1987 Constitution, which limits foreign ownership of the capital of a public utility to not more than 40%. Respondents, for their part, merely argued on procedural grounds. In its decision, the Supreme Court identified three key issues. The first two resulted from, as I said earlier, the procedural arguments of the respondents: the propriety of the declaratory relief, the legal standing of petitioner Gamboa. The third issue is the main one, and it's the threshold issue in this case, and it was whether or not the term capital refers to the total common shares only, or to the total outstanding capital stock combined, which is the combined total of common and non-voting preferred shares. Now, in resolving the first two issues, the Supreme Court ruled as follows. As to the propriety of the declaratory relief, it simply stated that it is well settled that it has the power to treat a declaratory relief as one for mandamus, especially as in this case, there is involved an issue of far-reaching implications. And so far as the legal standing of petitioner Gamboa goes, the Supreme Court held that he had standing as a stockholder of PLDT because he would be directly affected if PLDT did in fact commit violations. Because if PLDT did in fact commit violations, then it may face a revocation of its license, which would affect Gamboa as a stockholder of PLDT, given that he has a financial stake in PLDT. Also, the Supreme Court added that this is one of transcendental importance, and its importance far outweighs any procedural impediment that the petition may have. Now, going to the main issue, or the threshold issue in this case, the Supreme Court started out by discussing the relevant provision, or as I said earlier, Section 11, Article 12. And it stated that this provision provides for basically the Filipinization of public utilities. That's why it granted only to Filipinos or to corporations at least 60% of whose capital is owned by Filipinos. The Supreme Court stated that this provision was a recognition of the sensitive and vital position that public utilities play in the national economy and in national security. and that the purpose of this provision was very clearly to prevent aliens from assuming control of our public utilities. However, the Supreme Court recognized that in all of these, in this provision, this provision begs the question, what is capital? If we are going to limit it to 60% Filipinos and only up to 40% foreign ownership, what does capital mean? For his part, Petitioner Gamboa argued that 40% foreign equity limitation refers only to common shares, because common shares are the ones entitled to vote. And if the purpose of Section 11, Article 12 was to limit alien control of public utilities, then we should only limit it to shares that are entitled to vote, because voting in a corporation equates to control of the affairs of the corporation. For their part, as I said earlier, since the respondents merely proffered procedural arguments, they were not able to offer their own definition of what capital should be. However, the Supreme Court took note of an earlier case, Fernandez versus Coanco, where substantially the same respondents were involved. And in that case, they argued that capital should be defined to include not only common shares but also preferred shares, because the Constitution does not distinguish. Now, it should be noted that PLDT's outstanding capital stock is composed of 78% preferred shares, 99% of which are Filipino. In the end, the Supreme Court ruled that the term capital should refer only to voting stock or to the controlling interest of a corporation. It said that this interpretation is consistent with the intent of the framers of the Constitution to place in the hands of Filipino citizens the control and management of public utilities, and that this is more in line with the goal or the aim to have or to produce a national economy which is effectively controlled by Filipinos. More specifically, the court's ruling in this case was that capital in Section 11, Article 12 refers only to shares of stock that can vote in the election of directors. And usually these are the common shares, since preferred shares usually do not have voting rights. But the court added, however, that if preferred shares are also entitled to vote in the election of directors, then preferred shares must be included in the term capital. And that's it. Maraming salamat, daghang salamat. Please subscribe to our channel. And thank you for watching and listening to DigestTube. If you like this, please hit like or subscribe. If you want us to digest a specific case, please let us know in the comments section, and we will do our best to do it as soon as we can. Thank you. God bless.